Can anybody hear me? Hello? Are you out there? Can anybody hear me? Oh, did I pull it out maybe? It's always a great way to start. It's the best way to start. Do you have audio? And
now I think we do. Okay, audio. Audio's back now. I think we're back. Sound is back. Sound is back. I can see it moving around. Spund is back. Sound is back. Does it still sound weird? It should be better now. You guys have a 30-second delay from what's actually coming out of my mouth, so that's just how eBay works. The echo's gone. Everything should be good now. Yeah, everything's good. So when I pulled the microphone up, it unplugged it out of the back, and then it switched to the one on the computer. Excuse me, and then I got the echo. So anyway, we have a good topic for today. We have a great topic today. The topic for today is going to be the great reseller replacement theory, and I think it's actually a law. So I'm really excited to talk to you all about that reseller replacement. This is something that was forecasted years ago, and I think we're seeing it happen, and I want to talk about it. So the document, List Easier, the document, this is the road to 100 million. This is where we are aggressively listing items onto eBay and attempting to list $100 million worth of product in the next 9 years. We are 58 days into this, and we are using our flux capacitor nucleus of goodness, and that is artificial intelligence. We're using List Easier artificial intelligence to help us list this stuff and really get this thing going, because we know the train's leaving the station and we want to be on it, and we see an opportunity to do something incredible, and now's the time to act. So we're patient with our results, but we are quick to action. So all this stuff you see here, mostly here, is getting listed with List Easier artificial intelligence. What's changed in the past 24 hours since we talked last, which was yesterday, where we talked about risk? Check out that episode if you'd like. It does get a little bit dry as when you're talking about risk, it does. I promise to make it up to you today, but that was yesterday's episode. And since then, what has changed? Not a whole lot. So in the artificial intelligence, things are rolling along, I should say, continuing to work on the UK until everything is sort of dealt with on that end of things. So that's being worked on. We are continuing to list items. We're packing items. We have a lot of items going out today, so a lot to ship. I see the piles kind of piling up over there. You can't see it. And that's really all that's been going on. It is just another step forward kind of day. The disciplined, steady execution approach. That's all that's happening in the past 24 hours. So we have everyone here. And you know what? It's been, with illness and everything that's going on, I think for all of us, all three of us here in the warehouse, in the document warehouse, it's been a brutal week. Sickness and, illness and things, like all the things. It's just been a bad week. So we are just executing and continuing forward. But nobody really has a smile on their face. This is a hard week. It's been a really hard week, guys. So that's that. Now, let's talk about some numbers. Let's talk about numbers. We have two accounts, List Easier _records, List Easier _books. Listing Easier _books is the most active account right now. Records is on hiatus. I don't know for how long, but books right now, we have like 50 pallets of stuff ahead of us. So we have not even listed 3 pallets. We've listed 1 out of 53 or so. So we have a long ways to go on books. So you'll see books is active. That store is really ramping up. That's where all the activity is happening. And total, we have 13,101 listings. Again, you can go onto eBay and give us a heart if you want to save us as a seller, and you can watch everything that we're doing. It costs nothing, but we have 13,101 listings. Total dollar amount listed, $323,426.12. Our next goal here is $500,000 listed. I think some point in the middle of March, around there. But we are at $323,426.12, and I think that's incredible. Unbelievable for only being live for 58 days. Total revenue, $19,933.04. I think tomorrow we will tick over to $20,000. That's another milestone. But for me, the big milestones right now are revenue to $100,000 and listed inventory to $500,000. The listed inventory to $500,000, that's going to come first. And then we are 0.5% of the way to our goal. Remember that our systems will scale mostly towards the end. The last 4 years, this is like full-blown factory at that point. Our topic for today, the reseller replacement theory. This is something that was prognosticated back years ago. I want to go back to, not too far back, but I want to go back to the mid-2000s. And in the mid-2000s, I think the way people operated on eBay was they sold their kind of extra stuff, and that was, you made pretty good money on the side, or you were a collector and you sold your doubles. And that was kind of how e-commerce was going with eBay, but it was a really robust market. And there were a handful of entrepreneuring people who realized at the time, hey, I can do exceptionally well with this. So they turned it into a business. Like, I think I can do this full time and make a lot of money. And then throughout that period of time, up until, let's say, 2020 or so, they learned the hard way how to run this business, what works, what doesn't, and they scaled and grew their businesses into the point where we had the shutdown, and it just became really popular. And that's kind of when people like me came aboard, where I was working a corporate job, and I just couldn't really take it anymore. And I saw what was happening online, as many other people did. And my first thought is, I can do this because nobody else really, seems to me, has a business mindset. And I don't mean nobody, because there are people that do, but it was just the mindset of, if you have a solid foundational understanding of business, there's a lot of opportunity here, because most people don't. So you see a lot of people operating without systems. You guys all remember this. A lot of people operating without systems, just crap lying around. I don't feel like listing today. I don't feel like doing it today. I'm taking a week off. I feel burned out. I'm tired. Like, there wasn't the serious execution. There wasn't the, just the foundational knowledge of what you need to do in order to grow a business. It was kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what works. And that's where I was like, I think I can do this. And I think there's a lot of opportunity here if I apply business knowledge. The thing is, there is a fallacy there, because there is a lot of effort that's required, and the amount of effort you put in doesn't equal the output on the other end. And that's a whole other story. There's probably many reasons for that. So that was a fallacy, or a trap, that I kind of fell into. But in that time, you started to see people like, I want to say Tech and Sports and Daily Refinement. These kind of guys were coming out as, they're like with more of a business mindset, with more of a business mentality. And by that, I mean systems focused, execution focused. And you started seeing that narrative permeate into the kind of the ecosystem of what was going on online. And at the time you had people who were like, this is hogwash, it's nonsense, and they just kind of do whatever they want to do. And then the other ones who are really seeking knowledge, really seeking to build systems, really seeking to grow systems. And you almost had this divergence. And I think we've come to the point where you've seen the ones who have kind of been doing this casually, their voice is becoming smaller and smaller. They will gravitate online to entertainment and sort of the negativity and all that other stuff, but you're really seeing like a thirst for systems, business knowledge, and applying those things to your business. Like that is really what it is now. That's kind of where it is and where it's going. So I mean, how can you casually keep up with some of the stuff that's going up, even knowledge wise? Pick some of the content creators that you watch. Look at the thirst for knowledge. Look at the vocabulary and the discussions that are coming out of a lot of those content creators. And prior to that, there were a lot of people faking it. You know, it was very clear they didn't know what they were talking about. They were garnering a fair bit of success because they had a captured closed audience, like everything was shut down and people are buying nostalgia online. But when the Tide came out, you could see who was naked, right? You could see who the paper tigers were. And there's a little bit of a backlash going on. That's neither here nor there. But the ones who are really driving forward and finding success are people who are systems oriented. They're focused on processes and they're seeking knowledge. It's thirst for knowledge. How do I improve? How do I improve? And that thirst to knowledge is leading them towards business principles and business best practice, and they're adopting it. And those are the ones you're seeing doing exceptionally well, in my opinion. You know, there's no faking it anymore for the most part. I believe in the reselling world, you can do exceptionally well. I really do. I think that you have to lean heavily on processes and the discipline to execute daily. Like this is a machine. The machine has to be on at all times. I do believe that. Many people don't treat it that way. I do believe that gone are the times of really, or close to it, but going to a thrift store or 5 or 6 thrift stores every single day and finding a handful of items and then listing them online. I think those days are really coming to an end. You really have to be assertive with how you manage your time. And by that, I mean replacing time-consuming tasks with processes and systems. Even sourcing. Joe, the Profit First Reseller, I spoke to him in his live. And I said, your sourcing skills are A+. And he said, I don't really spend any time sourcing. I get that. We don't spend any time sourcing. I haven't been in a thrift store or to a garage sale in years and years and years and years. I understand that people enjoy that kind of stuff, but the whole, like the community online is moving in a different direction. It's moving towards business focus. And I think if you're on the creator side of things, you've noticed this. A lot of people have dropped off. People who casually watch this or doing it for a little bit extra money, they're no longer interested. They don't want garages filled with stuff where they don't want to like list every single day and come home and have this clunky mess of stuff and everything else. It just no longer becomes worth it. It is very worth it if you have systems and processes in place. It is very worth it if you have systems and processes in place. It is very worth it if you spend the time to seek the knowledge that is required to grow a business. And I think we're seeing a real divergence. I believe Tech and Sports had said it himself in the past that, guys, I see it myself. And this is years ago. Tech, if you're watching, I think this is what you said. I'm pretty sure. But this is years ago. He said, I'm seeing a divergence where people are really business focused as opposed to casually doing this. And I think the casually doing this will eventually fall off. The timeline for that was probably like a 10-year time frame, because for the system to kind of remold itself, a lot of times it takes a while. AI has accelerated that. It's really pushed that and made that even faster or happen very quick. So the it's just it's an interesting change in how businesses and people operate on the platform. I know I'm kind of beating this to death, but even when I first came on here talking about reselling, let's call it 2020, 2021. I don't know exactly when. But even then, like, people, loud voices were adamant that you do not file taxes. Like, you don't have to file taxes. You don't need to declare it. You don't why is eBay declaring it for? Like, these kinds of things. This was not business oriented at all. People were very loud that, you know, my business is built on getting stuff from Goodwill, from the arbitrage, and not understanding, time value and opportunity cost, and just the sheer amount of time that it would take to hunt around in 40 or 50 different places to get all this stuff. I know I'm kind of ranting here, but I'm just trying to prove to you that that mindset didn't exist. And now there's the divergence. And those other people who didn't treat it like a business, who are very loud and push back on systems, processes, that was not their focus, they have become quieter and quieter and quieter and have fallen off. Even if they still exist online, they are no longer relevant. If their businesses have failed because they did not treat it as a business, or grow it as a business, or have a thirst for knowledge, or focus on systems and processes, and their business failed, they now will switch to other avenues of income. So things have shifted very quickly. And I would like to really know how eBay feels about that. eBay has always been a proponent of the casual seller. They want people to come on board. They like that kitschy niche seller. You see it in their commercials, listing a few things here and there. They like that. But the narrative, at least on social media, particularly YouTube, is people trying to build businesses, adopting business principles, putting them in their business, growing. And eBay is almost like a symbol of the American dream. Like, you can start a business with next to nothing and grow it into like a legit large scale operation. It's possible. We're doing it right here. You can see my very first videos in front of like dumpsters and sea cans and storage lockers and all that other stuff. And here we are now at this point. It's very possible. It's very, very possible. But I do think to get there requires a focused, disciplined effort, which includes a focus on systems and processes and knowledge, gaining knowledge. You should have a thirst for knowledge. If you don't understand something that's being said, or you don't understand some of the business sort of concepts that are being floated out there that you're starting to see, the easy thing to do is just just ignore it. Oh, here they go. Here they go again, and move off into the entertainment, which is it's funny and whatever else. But if you want to improve, you got to go that hard route. And I recall doing it myself, like sitting through a lot of this stuff and not really understanding, but pursuing it doggedly. And that's how you get better, right? And once you understand it, it's all very clear. Once you understand it, it's all very clear. Okay. I'm going to jump into the chat. Let me know what you think about the great reseller replacement. I believe it is occurring. I 100% believe that it is occurring. It is accelerating. I think AI has allowed that to accelerate. And listen, Another thing has happened here too with high dollar or high volume low dollar stuff. So things that are under, let's say, $4. This was also a common thing that was on eBay for a long period of time, and eBay kind of tried to move away from it. And I'm not going to get into the politics of this all because it's going to upset some people. But the listing high volumes of low dollar stuff, essentially what's occurred now in these past 3 or 4 years is those sellers are feeling the effects of margin compression. So either they have to double or triple or quadruple or 10x the number of listings that they put out there to keep their margins, or they've had to move to a more profitable product, or they've fallen off completely. But that was also, that was the game for a long time too. Low dollar sports cards, just low dollar stuff, low dollar stamps. That was a big thing on eBay. Those margins have been compressed to the point that I don't even know that it's worth it anymore, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, let's get the chat engaged in this. Everyone, hello, hello, hello. I'm going to skip down further because I talked for almost 20 minutes here, and then we can get into the meat and potatoes, but I do want to say hello to everyone. Hello, 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 hello. Everybody. Lag says, wait, is throwing spaghetti at the wall a thing and it sticks? Ooh, I'm trying that. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. M. Cole says, hello. Talking about the O face, James. Kittenville Ranch says, it ain't about knowledge. I watch to better my game. The thing is, Kittenville Ranch, you can't better your game without knowledge, because the theory is you are operating at the best, like the top capacity that you know. The top capacity that you know. The only way to level jump is to gain more knowledge. And then apply that knowledge, because if you understand and you gain the knowledge but you don't actually apply it, then it's also just entertainment. There were things that I just didn't understand when I first started out. And I didn't know that I didn't know them. There are very basic principles that I was not applying to my business because I didn't know what those principles were. But once you do it, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, well, that's, of course. Something as simple as never reacting emotionally, always react logically. Something as simple as that. It's a very easy concept to understand, but most people don't put it into practice. So when somebody jumps on calling you an idiot and all this other stuff, you snap back, a lot of people, but that is the wrong way to operate. Little, that's like a very simple thing. But you start really getting into the weeds of things like opportunity cost, compounding returns, running a SWOT analysis, understanding risk. Understanding what a customer wants and how to solve a customer's problems. These things unlock more opportunity. But if you don't understand it, you don't know it, then it doesn't do it. You can't get better without knowledge. You can't get better. In business, you can't get better without knowledge. The thing that is stopping, I think, me from taking it up another level, there's two things. Number one is time. Number two is knowledge. So time I can't do anything about. I mean, this all takes time. It takes time to list this stuff and move forward, get a better reputation on eBay. Like, both our accounts have under 100 feedback, or they're brand new. Knowledge, I can break into that. I can knock on doors. I can reach out. I can go out and seek the knowledge. I'm going deep in thought here. It's causing me to pause. Kevin Hawthorne says, good afternoon. Today is my birthday. Happy birthday, Kevin Hawthorne, Lakeland, Florida. Good to see you. My friend is moving down to Lakeland, Florida, so he's going to be there with you. Charlie Goki eBay, or Lou Coin says, eBay is on fire, listening and packing orders here. Good morning. I have a lot to pack too. So I started this morning. I see a lot of boxes here. Busy, busy, busy. Classic Phase says, hello. Classic Phase, good to see you. Profit First Joe says, hey, Josh. Hey, everyone. Good morning. So, Joe, perfect example. So, how much time do you spend acquiring knowledge? Like we're talking people here now that are accelerating in this space that probably spend 4 or 5 hours a day learning, even if they're doing it while they're working. They have the discipline to operate every day within reason. They understand opportunity cost. They've probably learned a few hard lessons, might even have a few failed businesses under their belt. So now they're dogged, they're resilient. They are not afraid to scale systems. They understand the need for processes. You know, sometimes I see in Joe's comments, so people say, well, must be nice. You get video games. Like, must be nice to get those video games. If I got those video games, I could do the same thing as you. But what do you think? Those just fall from the sky? You think Joe's walking around, it just falls from the sky, or he just walks into a Goodwill and there's Nintendo games lined up? That's not how it works. It takes time. And it takes knowledge, and it takes that dogged resilience of making deals and making mistakes. And, oh man, I bought all this stuff. I don't even know if I'm going to break even on it. Or buying stuff to break even because you know there's a bigger deal behind it. It just doesn't fall from the sky. I love that comment of, it must be nice. That's a whole other story, but must be nice to be you. It just doesn't show up. I've almost never had it, or very rarely, certainly not enough to run a business off of, where I walked into a place and something was sitting on the shelf and that gave me life-changing money. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. It is like creating a factory and building contacts. And you know what? Sometimes you win, sometimes I win, and the factory keeps going. You keep the wheels greased and it keeps going. In one end, out the other. Yeah, Lou says, I haven't been in a thrift store for 27 years. It's been shorter than that for me. Lou, I was feeling nostalgic. I think I went last year and I walked in and I was like, I think all this stuff is garbage here. Like, this is Value Village, by the way, which is particularly bad, AKA Savers. But it was garbage. There's no good stuff here. So they've changed their systems too. Okay, I'm back. None of it sticks. Well, the sauce did. Wait, was this a prank on me, says Lag. Kittenville Ranch says, someone also said if you want to make money, you need to build a machine and then your machine needs to be scalable. That's true, Kittenville. Yeah. Yeah, you need to, a business, the value of the business is the business's processes. Are they repeatable? Can somebody else do them? Could you tomorrow, Kittenville, take an entire day to train someone how to do what you're doing and then not do that ever again anymore? Because if you can't, you don't really have a business. If you can't replace yourself because, well, hey, there's a box back there and then underneath that box, there's some things piled up. It's in there somewhere, I think, but if it's not there, you got to go over there and get it. And then, but first, before you do that, you got to go to the thrift store, not this one, but go to that one because they got better stuff. Like, that's not a business. And I think, to kind of expand on what you're saying, you need to build a machine. It's like a sausage maker, input, output. And that sausage maker looks the same. That is a business. where you can walk away from it and it can still run. Ultimately, the goal is to hire yourself out. Replace yourself out of the business. That can only happen if you have the machine that allows you to do it. Many people will say, I enjoy work, I like working around the house. I like doing it this way. But trust me, maybe you won't always want that. Maybe you don't always want that. And if there's a possibility that you don't always want that, then at least build it so that you don't have to be there. These businesses now are much bigger than what my WHS Stereo View was. I was more stressed working 12, 14 hours a day, running that thing the way it had to run, and I was not replaceable. I mean, if I'm not there, nobody knows what's going on. Then this. This does not require that much time. My job now is primarily making deals, customer service, reaching out, working on logistics, operations, but it's not the daily task of got to do this, got to do that. I'm scrambled all over the place. WHS Stereo View, I could never, ever, ever explain to people what they had to do in order to replace me. Like, you got to drive across the border, and then this inventory is there, and then the other stuff's on this side of the border. By the way, we got 6 C cans lined up. We got to try and sell those before Monday. Like, that was chaos. That was not this. This is boring. Not bad boring, but as it is just, it works. It moves forward. It works. It provides opportunity for other people. List easier, artificial intelligence, it's the same thing. It's infrastructure. It's boring. You log on, you use it. There's nothing exciting about it. You list your stuff, and then you move on. Our partnership with eBay is stable. Our goal is to provide value for them and for our customers, not extract value. We want to provide value. And to do that, we just kind of got to be boring infrastructure. Diane Vanderlinden says, yes, very nice clothing, sneakers, etc. in those ads. I don't know where that was, probably from up there a ways. Lou Coyne says, thrift store sourcing is not time efficient. Driving right past manufacturers. There are more manufacturers than there are thrift stores. Stuff is everywhere. You got to talk to people to get it. Stuff is everywhere. Suppliers are everywhere. In the business world, people want to do business. If you're not in the business world, it's intimidating to be like, why would they want to do business with me? But once you start, the business world wants to do business. Your mindset, if you want to scale your business and do that kind of business, is you have to understand that both sides have to win. So in the deal, both sides have to come out on top. If that is the case, you've got yourself a deal. So this person's problem might be out of space. It's a pain having this stuff around. I've dealt with it already. I've cherry-picked my favorite things. I don't want this huge lot of stuff anymore. And your thing might be, I have a way of getting this inventory up really cheap and really fast. You both win. Now, if someone has 10,000 comics and you say to them, I only want to buy the very best ones and the rest are going to be yours, I don't care about, well, they don't win, because if that guy only wanted or girl only wanted to sell the best comic books, they would have done it themselves. And also now, by you picking out the best ones, that whole collection that they have left over becomes less valuable. So you win, but they don't win. Both sides have to win. You got to find a way for both sides to win. And when you understand that concept, the deals start flowing. Unfortunately, I mean, you learn this over time. This includes not always winning. So I've done deals where it's like a break even, but I needed to maintain the relationship, or the deal was outside of what I wanted, but I knew it would lead to more deal flow later on. So I'm willing to eat that one. And that builds goodwill with the supplier. That's how that works. Aloe Vera and Josh, good to see you, Ms. Unites B Nudes. Welcome, welcome. We're having a hot debate today. And time is flying. I got to keep going. Dende Gordipo says, I've completely narrowed down my YouTube channels to 5 or so resellers, and the rest is my own after hours entertainment. There is some, my favorite Dende Core is watching people document what they're doing. Hey, what are they doing? Because that's where I learn the most. Because either I've been there, or I want to go there, or I'm there. Specifically, I like watching people who are in the place that I want to go. So, my feed for the past year or 6 months or 8 months has been primarily customer service, because, I thought I understood customer service. You just be nice to people. But there are so many dimensions to it, and there's so much theory behind it. And just by understanding that stuff, it's helped me a lot. So, here's an example. If someone comes at you angry as a customer, your initial response is, don't talk to me like that. You have no right to talk to me like that. But what they're really saying is they are angry and frustrated because they had a high expectation and that expectation wasn't met. Or they really want this thing to work, but it's not working for them, and they're frustrated. That rolls around in their head for a couple days, and they work up the nerve to reach out, and by that point, they're coming in hot. So your job on the customer service end is figure out what the problem is, turn the temperature down on whatever's going on, and then start interacting and seeing if you can flush out what the issue is. Sometimes it's super simple. I had to learn all that. And admittedly, it wasn't always easy, but I learned it from YouTube, just watching other people do it. Cold outreach, advertising, insurance, corporate structure, dealing with lawyers, intellectual property, all this stuff. I didn't know that stuff before. A lot of it I got from YouTube, and then just calling a lawyer saying, we need representation. Can you do this? And then with every interaction, really research what was being said. It was a way to learn. Just do it. J.R. Rutherford says, hobby resellers will have a tough time. Been reselling since 1981. Those who don't change with the times get left behind. Yeah, and this was a pretty rapid shift for sure. Definitely a rapid shift. I think you do have people now that are systems oriented, process oriented. Somebody had said that as a negative comment. Like, I don't like Josh anymore because he's too systems oriented, process oriented. But that's what you got to be. Like, that's business in a nutshell. Being emotionally reactive is entertaining, but that's not stable footing. That's not stability. Picking Anthology says, afternoon, y'all. Picking Anthology, welcome, welcome. There's a success story right there. Picking Anthology with List Easier went vertical, so congrats to you. Den Dacor says, shipping and Temu has killed off the low dollar market. A lot of things have. Inflation has, high interest rates. Margin compression has happened just through fees on the platform. Visibility. The fact that people have come into this now with a systems and process that are systems and process oriented. They'll run this stuff through a scanner or whatever, and they can get up hundreds of thousands of pieces every single month. Whereas before it was one at a time. So, a lot of things have changed it. Jen says, hello, Jen. Welcome. Good to see you. Temu is a juggernaut. It's a big company. Den Decor says, and Temu sellers are using counterfeit labels when shipping. I mean, who knows? Much of everything is made in China. They have the best injection molding processes in the world. They have the best manufacturing in the world. I don't think it's going to change. I mean, it'd be nice to say, well, that's going to change, but it's not going to change. It's just not going to change. Those days are behind us. As Dave Chappelle says, I want to wear Nikes. I don't want to be making those things. And it's true. I just don't see people, this is a whole other story, but it was going that way. It was going to go that way. No one's going to be making shoelaces here or sewing Barbie doll hair. Like, it's never coming back. It's just not happening. So Temu is a product of a global shift. It is now more expensive for that type of manufacturing to occur, but it will never come back. It just can't. Like, manufacturing in that regard is decades behind in the United States and Canada. It's decades behind. What do people think about that? It is so advanced in China. It is so advanced. I'm going to upset everybody with that, but it's true. Jared Rodeffer says, media sales are doubling for me with 0 promoted listings. I'm afraid to turn PL back on. I would get flooded with shipping, trying to avoid that until fourth quarter, building to that time. Like I said this to Eric, whatever's working, don't touch it. Never touch the things that are working until they stop working and then make the adjustment. You should be putting more gas on anything that works. So if what you're doing is working, keep doing that. If there is something that isn't working, but you don't want to deal with it, that's the thing you have to deal with. So for you, whatever you're doing, if it's working, just keep going. Perfect. Beanut says, I know a seller in Buffalo that does fasteners, nothing but screws, anchors, and so on. They're grossing $2.5 million annual at eBay. Temu slashed it to 1.5. Now they sell there too. The ground is always shifting. Den Decor says physical media is hot right now. Nice. Kittenville Ranch says that is how a lot of us started out. We would buy feedback by buying dollar items and selling socks. Yep. Then when our feedback reached 100, we started selling $20 or more items. I agree. A lot of people. Yeah, that's a lot of people started that way, myself included. Bryn Resale says getting emotional on returns used to be my biggest flaw. I feel foolish looking back, but I let a bad day of returns just crush my motivation for the entire day. At a 3% return rate, I let 3 out of 100 items wreck my mindset. Yeah, I agree with you, Rin. All of us. I mean, I had one the other day where the person returned the item and said to me, well, essentially, I'm going to buy this stuff off you, but if it is not going to grade like a 9 or a 10 or an 8, I'm going to send it back. Well, that's not working for me. You can't buy stuff from me and then send it back and buy it and send it back. I mean, do as you wish, but I was kind of snippy. I said, look, this stuff is 50, 60, 70 years old. Nothing is going to be in immaculate, perfect condition. So I was a little bit snippy, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And like you said, 3% is not the focus, the 97% is. And that one goes into risk reduction. So we say condition is good. We don't say condition is excellent or mint. That is our risk reduction. If one falls through the cracks and still tries to do this magazine game or this grading game, so be it. It's not the end of the world. Oh, 3% is high, says B-Nudes. B-Nudes, sell wedding dresses where the return rate is like 40 or 50%. That is high. Clothing can get well into 4, 5, 6%. There's an epidemic of people who are window shopping using Amazon. Basically, send me the clothes. I try it on. I look at it in the mirror. I don't really like it. I wear it out a few times. I send it back. And now it stinks like deodorant and the original packaging isn't there anymore. So 3% is very reasonable, depending on where you are selling and what niche you're in. There you go. Clothing. Rin says, I primarily sell clothing and offer free returns. I'm happy with it for that category. Yeah, that's a low return rate for clothing. People will treat online sellers like window shopping. They'll try it on. They'll say, I ordered it by mistake. They'll buy something for Halloween. They'll send it back after Halloween. They'll buy something for Christmas. They'll send it back after Christmas. It's awful. J.R. Rodeffer says, so much media availability in my area. I'm having to turn sellers with small quantities away. Unless a ton of cherries, I turn sellers away. I always found, JR, that it's better to build relationships with people who can consistently provide you with stuff rather than, for me too, like going out of my way for small deals. I at least hope that a small deal, let's say it's like 1,000 or 1,500 items, can lead to more down the line. Joe, Profit First Reseller, says, yes, I love listening to audiobooks. Also, YouTube is amazing for learning. I agree 100%. 100%. I've listened to, and this is where Chase Bernick and I really got into some good conversations, because he has that same thing where he's like listening to David Senra, and he's really reading a lot of the same material that I'm reading about starting businesses and mindset and, 0 to 1 and the All In podcast, When It Was Still Good, and VC20 and My First Million, Sean Purry and Sam Parr, all these guys. Like, there's so much information there, and I am excited to talk about it. Like, I really enjoy talking about that kind of stuff with people, and you flush out things. I think it is such an important part of getting better is the willingness to walk outside of what you already know, and concepts that are a little bit fuzzy or you don't understand, really leaning into those and working on it until you grasp it. I didn't understand long division until my 20s. It wasn't until my 20s where I sat down and I'm like, I really have to understand the concept of this. Now, in my 20s, I am taking vector calculus and quantum physics, and I don't understand long division. For the life of me, I can't do it. I would reverse multiply to get the numbers. Didn't understand it. And I think it is just an essential quality to have that hunger for knowledge. And if you don't understand anything, now I'm a detective and I need to know it. And it opens up a ton of opportunity, especially if you apply things to your business. The overhead camera, that just came from learning. I saw someone else using it, Super Dave, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've wasted hundreds of hours. Why don't I have an overhead camera? What the heck is, you pick up little things like that. James Helferstay, the reverse tape. He was using it to clean hats. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm burning through like 10 lint rollers a day and he's using tape. Why didn't I think of that? You only pick up those little nuggets through thirst of knowledge, and you can make a ton of money with it. Diane says, Yeah, without research, I wouldn't have known that some of these old zippers I have from a stash are now worth over $50. Yeah, for sure. And that was, I think, how the knowledge thing started with bolos, and you had people like Noel, Scavenger Noel, like groups like that where they were talking about sewing patterns and knickknacks and miniatures and all these things. And that, for a lot of people, they'd walk by those things and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was worth that much money. And I think that these discussions have progressed now into legit business discussions. Like the people who are operating now and doing well are running these things like legitimate businesses. Um, they're, keeping strong books, filing taxes, learning, building systems and processes, all those things. Ren Resale says, according to Google, clothing in the retail world is a 20 to 30% return rate. I would imagine it's pretty high. Yeah. Go look at Costco, for example. Have you ever gone to Costco and not seen a huge lineup at the return aisle? It's like crazy. Picking Anthology says, I sell model kits. I'll spend 3 or 5 hours a day online searching for collections to buy. They don't just fall out of the sky. You got to work for it and go get it. This all comes from knowledge. I agree. But picking Anthology, then when you have your deal, you're not going to let the deal walk over $100. Or, sometimes you got to have this dogged resistance where even if the deal doesn't look like it's materializing, you have to keep following up and keep following up and keep following up. We have that right now. The supplier is habitually not ready. We have to consistently follow up to close those deals. Profit First Reseller says, arguably even more important than knowledge for entrepreneurs is grit. A lot of it is psychological because no matter how much you've learned, you're going to make a million mistakes and the winners just keep trying. Because a mistake or a failure isn't real. You can frame a mistake or a failure as an endpoint, but successful entrepreneurs, as Joe is saying, they just see it as an obstacle or a hurdle or a learning moment. You failed at that. Okay. I'm still going. I'm not dead. I don't really care. You bought that stuff and you couldn't break even on it. That was a mistake. Moving on. Failure is not an endpoint. It does not end in death. It is just a learning moment. But you do psychologically have to have the grit for really down moments that keep happening over and over again. Cash flow issue. You have to step away from the business for a while. Just pile on difficulties that seem to happen in 3s or 4s or 5s. And just have the grit that, tomorrow the sun comes up. I had it myself. I had very difficult times where everything was going wrong. I was doing it in front of an audience of people who were enjoying the struggle to a certain degree, and then having the grit to just keep moving. And it literally got to the point that I was like, at least I wake up in the morning. And I'm like, I just got to get through the day. And you know what? The world didn't end. And eventually I got through it just one day at a time. Sometimes you're working months and years or even a decade into the future. Sometimes you're one day at a time. I got to make it to the morning. And that's just how it goes. You got to have the grit to do that. And that is particularly painful when you're in a cash flow issue or you're in a cash crunch, when you have cash flow concerns. JR Rodeffer says, yeah, you learn from your mistakes, you move on. I mean, it is what it is, right? Nobody dies, so we're still good. Preston, good to see you. Welcome back, my man. Says, I am a part-time side hustle eBay bookseller. I work a job. Every time I go to my Goodwill outlet, I see the same people who grind away and spend so much time at the Goodwill outlet sourcing. I see, Preston, or I used to see people scanning CDs. So at the Goodwill, you would have a rack of CDs, and every day they would go and they would scan every single CD. And those CDs would go to eBay or sometimes Amazon if they were in good enough shape. But you can buy a gaylord of CDs and get the same quality merchandise with the same profits. So what is the point? Clothing. Clothing is another one. You got to ask yourself the question, is it worth it just to buy a few bales of clothing and then resell the bale again? I don't know. Like, I'm not a clothing seller, but I think rummaging through racks every single day for 4 or 5 hours, like, that gets expensive over time. It's hard to do every single day. Maybe if you're pulling gems, like thousands of dollars every single day, it's worth it. But even that, you got to focus on scaling your system at some point. How do you replace yourself in that situation? If you go to the thrift store every single day, like, how do you explain that to an employee? Okay, here you go. Go to that store, that one, but you got to go to that one first. Don't go to that one till afterwards. And when you go to that one, start at this rack and then go over there and start at that rack. But if it's this much money, don't buy it. But if it's that much, you got to get it. But look to make sure that this is got this kind of stitching. Like, how do you hire yourself out of that? That becomes hard. You're just like this walking encyclopedia. How do you hire yourself out? I want to go on a 2-week vacation and I still want the business to operate. I want to be able to give back to the community. I want to be able to create jobs. I don't want to be in my 70s, struggling every single day. Lag says, I've trained AI to replace myself. Now I don't know if I'm a copy or an original. Eric Bressy says, Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to you. Welcome, welcome. B-Nudes, I'm skipping over a lot of that. Skipping. Eric Bressy says, I am proof that PL is back on. Sales are back, almost 500 yesterday. Okay, so Eric, you learned. You touched the stove. You had to do it. Well, now you know, right? We all touched the stove, by the way, Eric. Every one of us has done that. We all touched the stove. That's how we learned. And now we don't touch the stove anymore. Lag, I also orientate my systems just to be sure. Quantum mechanics, now you're talking my language. Oh, awful. Wheels and Resonances, I just had to say that I can't. Shut down all businesses yesterday after news. Family is taking over, but I am done. I'm just saying that I can't. I'm sorry to hear that, Wheels. We are all thinking and praying for you. Just, focus on your health. Focus on yourself. Business is meaningless if you don't have your health. So we're all thinking about you and praying for you, Wheels. Lucky Fine says, hit the thumbs up. You lost me at lawyers, says JR. Oh, man, tell me about it. And to flip it says, something I heard recently, I think it was Primo, is that sold comps aren't always the answer for price. I've been pricing up things and things are selling. I'm often the highest sold comp. It depends on your model. I don't believe in trying to squeeze every single dollar out. I don't like things leaving at a huge margin of discount, but it really depends on your margin. And with that, I hear everyone coming back. So I'm out of here, everyone. I appreciate you all. Thank you for joining me today, and we will see you in tomorrow's live stream.